Welcome to Chapter 6 of the Washington State Bee Association Beginning Beekeeper Certification, where we will look at swarms and natural reproduction. We will cover 4 sections in this chapter, which is swarm prevention, preparing to swarm, secondary swarms, and catching a swarm. Giving the bees room does not mean putting on an extra super, as this will not deter swarming. The room needs to be added in the brood area. However, this will only deter the bees from swarming if their desire is due to congestion and not natural reproduction. Bees will swarm for overcrowding and reproduction. If a colony looks very strong in the early spring, it is wise to attempt to control swarming by dividing the colony. If this is done prior to seeing swarm cells, the colony may not have begun preparing for swarming and may be deterred. To divide the colony and create a split, take the frame with the swarm cell if present, or eggs if not, and add 1 to 2 frames of brood, 1 to 2 frames of storage, ensuring that the queen is not on any of the frames, and place them in a nuke box or a hive body, ensuring to add as many empty frames as needed to fill the box and separate it from the original hive. Monitor both hives by checking on them in 2 weeks to see if there are eggs in the original hive, meaning the queen is still there, or if there is a queen cell, meaning that the colony may be trying to raise a new queen. In the new hive, see if the queen cell has been sealed or has hatched, and if there is young brood. Depending on the status of the queen cell, it may take longer before you see signs of new eggs. So don't give up until at least 4 weeks have passed without signs of new eggs or larvae. If this is the case, you can merge the colony with another colony or try to introduce a frame of new eggs or a new queen. Remember, swarming is the natural method of reproduction. No matter how hard you may try, it is not always possible to stop a swarm, especially when the bees have a desire to reproduce. A reproductive swarm is difficult to control once the bees have made up their minds that they are healthy enough and food is available. The first sign that a colony may be preparing to swarm is the creation of a queen cell. However, just because you find queen cells started doesn't mean the swarming is imminent. It's only when eggs are laid in them that you know the colony has decided to swarm. But the construction of the queen cell and the laying of an egg in it is just the start of their preparation. After the egg is laid, the new queen will emerge in 16 days, and now it's time to get the old queen in flight condition. Because the queen relies so much on the bees for her care, this is an easy task. The bees will begin to feed the queen less and less, resulting in a reduction of the egg she lay, as well as the size of her abdomen. Nurse bees will aggressively push, shake, and nip at the queen, keeping her moving, where she will lose 25% of her body weight. When the queen cell is capped, the swarm leaves the hive. The swarm is made up of mostly older nurse bees and younger fill bees. Prior to them leaving the hive, they will fill their stomachs with honey to carry to their new location. They increase their weight by 50%. Their wax glands also become active in anticipation of building wax for their new home. However, the bees do not go straight to their new location. After the swarm leaves, they will cluster on a nearby location, allowing the bees to gather while sending out a scout to find their new site. This can take anywhere from a couple of hours to a day. The queen usually emerges about a week after the swarm leaves. However, it is the colony that decides what to do with the remaining queens. They could have a secondary or after swarm if they think it's strong enough. They could kill the other queens before they emerge, or they can allow the queen to kill the competitors to see who will stay. While catching a swarm is both profitable and rewarding, it is also fun for the beekeeper. However, it is important that you be safe and do not take any unnecessary risk while trying to catch a swarm. You must remain alert and ready for a swarm to show up because the swarm will not wait for you. Have a nuke box or any box with a lid, a ladder, a step stool, and something to cut branches or limbs ready at all times. Bees normally swarm on warm, dry days between mid-morning and early afternoon. Remember, the swarm will go where the queen goes, so if you can cage her, the swarm will remain where she is. Before you catch a swarm, you should have extra hive and other beekeeping equipment available in your bee yard to maintain it. Once you catch a swarm, you will need to feed it, and while providing supplemental feed can maintain their strength until they can draw comb and forage, adding a frame of honey from another hive will give them an added advantage. You should treat a swarm just as you would a package. In fact, most swarms will be bigger, if not the same size as a package of bees. The only difference between a swarm and a package of bees is that the queen is already part of the swarm colony. Also, after installing the swarm, this is the ideal time to treat for mites.